Today, we become legends.
Today's Titan Talk had Rocky on as a guest, who's the lead programmer on Smite 2, so there were a lot of questions about technical work and a ton of people asking about how hard their main is to port, as well as some other interesting questions. So without further ado, let's jump into the recap. First up, Rocky was the main programmer on Jormungandr in Smite 1 and is again in Smite 2, so he opened up with talking a bit about how bizarre and bespoke a lot of Jorm's tech is and how he's very different to other gods, not just from a gameplay perspective, but also from a programming perspective. Stuff like his ult, where his head is the only actual rigged and animated part of him and the rest is just repeated body segments that are dynamically generated and moved along a spline, and his base model is actually just moved onto the map while the ult goes on and it resurfaces once you're done. They've also had to make an entirely new action cam perspective for Jorm that might get used on other gods as well, because the current action camera is just way too low down and zoomed in, and Jorm's model blocks far too much of your field of view when using it. They also mentioned that Jorm's base camera will also be getting tweaks for his Smite 2 rendition. Rocky also mentioned the reduced item proc effectiveness tech for Jorm again. He said that if it's a damage or heal effect, Jorm can proc it, but at a reduced value, of course. So it sounds like he probably won't be able to proc flat utility effects from items like Executioner or Avenging Blade, but he will be able to proc damage and heal effects like Death's Toll or Braggy's Harp. The way they were talking about it sounded like it was already working in dev, so it seems like this tech will be there for Jorm on launch, and of course will be available for other similar gods when they are ported, such as Fafnir's Dragon Form. Rocky also said that the original creation of Jorm's ultimate took around 6 weeks to get it working right, but they managed to get it done in Smite 2 for Jorm in about a week, which is pretty crazy. Some of this will be UE5 moments, and some will be there recreating something they've done before, so it's a little easier, but that's a monumental difference in how quickly they can get things done regardless. Someone asked Rocky which god he is least looking forward to programming, and to probably no one's surprise, he said King Arthur, as he has a lot of unique tech going on. He specifically said they want to get the movement system down right before doing too much with Arthur, as he is a very movement and feels heavy character with his unique lunge autos and half of his kit being movement abilities. He also mentioned that Ola Run is a very hard one purely because time dilation is an effect that touches almost every other system in the game in some way, and making it work correctly in all those different situations is very hard to do. And finally, Cleaner was another one that he mentioned just due to her wall tech and how unique that is. Moving on though, Kilgoon of course mentioned that Wednesday's show this week will be the full OB17 reveal, where we'll see Jorm in full as well as everything else coming in the next update, and Friday will be the balance notes for the patch. So be sure to tune in then, and or subscribe here if you want to catch my recaps as they go out. Next up though, someone asked if Chronos ult is hard to make or not, and Rocky said it's not actually that bad. They just need to store your positional and health data on the back end at various timestamps, and when you press your ult, a timestamp is selected and you retrace your steps along a spline and regain back to the health number that is stored for that timestamp. Someone asked if Killcams are hard to implement from a programming perspective, and Rocky said he hasn't personally worked on them ever, but he's heard things from the Paladins team which did implement Killcams, and apparently they are a pain to get working and maintain over time. You basically have to store the game state at all times, and when you replay it, you need to make sure that certain sound effects and ability effects are starting and ending midway through to make sure they align with the kill cam, as you don't want a sound effect for an ability that started right at the end of the kill cam to continue playing when you're back alive, or to have a visual effect for an ability that was already in progress when the cam started to just start as the cam starts, as it will be misaligned with what's actually happening, stuff like that. Skadi was brought up, and Rocky said that of course Calder is very hard to make work the way he does, and he's far more complicated than something like new minions, and those are already quite hard to work with. All AI is, basically. Calder has to stay near Skadi but not get in the way of her, respond to commands, dash around, return when he's out of hit points, respond to her ultimate. There's a lot going on with him, and they've been slowly building up tech in the background that will help with his implementation. Like basic attacking AI such as the new minions, the tech that Changa's rabbit and Erlang's dog use will be helpful for Skadi as well, as Calder follows Skadi around in a similar way. Argus will be another step up as he can take commands from Hera similar to Calder, and then Calder is sort of the final boss of AI pets. Rocky did shout out Baba's house as a surprisingly difficult one to get working as well though, due to its weird mechanics like getting scared and running away if you go near it, and of course flying up and onto Baba for her ultimate. Someone asked if horses like Lancelot, Hachiman and Guan Yu are hard to make or not, and if they use a lot of the same tech for programming, and Rocky said that it's generally not much of a programming thing for that, it's more of a tech art and rigging thing, which is more complicated than most due to how many limbs they have. He did mention that they actually shifted Guan's horse to use Lancelot horse's rigging at some point, so they are pretty interchangeable it sounds like, and their rigging improved a lot between Guan's release in beta and Lance's release in Season 7. There were a few questions on optimization, and Rocky said that it's something they're always working on and there's no silver bullet to just optimize the game. Specifically, minions are very resource intensive, especially in UE5, as they are always looking at ways to strip down minions to the bare bones on what they need to work, and recycle them where possible to avoid having too much of a drain on resources, given that 36 minions, all with AI and moving, can be active at one time. Someone asked about Hachiman and Aokwang, and Rocky said that from a gameplay perspective, Hachiman is pretty easy, though he is a little more involved on the art side of things due to his ultimate, but not too bad overall. For Aokwang, he said he wouldn't be too hard either, but might be a little bit more involved, mainly due to his ultimate and time consuming, and it's all about priorities and what they can get done while maintaining a god every 2 weeks. Someone in chat mentioned that there might be a time where there's only hard gods left to port if they keep just making easy ones, and Killcams said that's possible for sure, but they aren't only making easy gods. They do try and balance them a bit and do some harder gods to add mixed in. For example, Jormungandr and Janus have come back to back and are both pretty hard gods to work. Hell was brought up as well, and Rocky said that programming wise, Hell is incredibly easy, which makes sense. None of her abilities individually really do anything too crazy. It's just line damage or circle heal or circle proc red and slow, but from an art and rigging side of things, she isn't so easy, as you have to make and rig 2 different models and have VFX and SFX for 8 different abilities. They didn't mention this on the show, but they have said in the past also that they probably want to take a look at remodeling Hell in some way when she does eventually come over, as her Smite 1 model is very old, and some people in the community think it doesn't accurately represent her too well. Fafnir also came up in conversation, and they said that gameplay wise he's not too hard, but has some weird quirks, and of course it's the art side of things that makes Fafnir really hard to make, and he's got the secret sauce of very unpopular and very hard to make, which likely means we won't be getting him anytime soon. Kilgun did say though that there's potentially things they could do for him as he moves over to Smite 2 to maybe make him more popular. He said that Callie has been a good example of this, as she was not very popular at all in Smite 1 historically, but she's actually fairly popular in Smite 2. Not mega popular, but decent. I would imagine a lot of that comes down to her having essentially 3 distinct unique playstyles in Smite 2, with her standard melee shredder that we all know from Smite 1, but as well the intelligence burst damage build and aspect ranged ADC playstyles. So even if you didn't like the original Callie, you might like one of the other 2 and still play her a lot. Someone asked what the easiest god they ported was so far, and Rocky said that the easiest god to port is probably Anubis, as his abilities are extremely simple, but he was one of the original roster back when the team was just starting out in UE5, so he might have actually not been the easiest considering when he came out. But if Anubis were to be ported now, he'd be for sure the easiest to make from a programming perspective, and I would imagine he's pretty easy art-wise as well. Heimdall was brought up, and Rocky said that Heim would probably be a good bit easier than he was in Smite 1, because the tech for making his ult is easier to do in UE5 and partially already exists with Aladdin's ultimate. For those that don't know, the lamp arena is part of every map in Smite 2, but is only loaded in when Aladdin is picked, and you just teleport into it when the ult goes off. Heim uses similar tech, and in Smite 2 they could just create the realms that you fly through, add it to all the maps with the same logic as Aladdin, and teleport you to it when you get sent off from a Heim ult. Persephone was mentioned, and Rocky said that she is pretty involved, and she's one of the gods similar to Fafnir that they might want to take another look at for some changes when she comes over. Hebo and Vamana were brought up and had very similar thoughts for both really. Very easy to make from programming and art perspectives, but they both have a lot of haters and they might want to look at some other changes as they come over. And finally, someone asked what the biggest or most useful UE5 feature has been compared to working in UE3, and Rocky said it's the blueprint system, hands down. This essentially lets them piece together different nodes and bits of logic instead of writing out the code line by line, and Rocky said specifically the UE5 gameplay ability system is an amazing starting point that they have made their own modifications on top of, and having things set up this way allows designers to create prototypes without needing the programming team to create things, which might end up being scrapped instantly if the designers don't like how it plays. For example, the vast majority of the work creating Aladdin ult's core functionality was actually done by Pon, a designer, and not by the programming team, which is a big time saver and lets them work on other things. But that's everything discussed on today's Titan Talk. Don't forget to drop a like before you leave and subscribe to the channel if you don't want to miss my OB17 recaps later this week, and I'll catch you guys for another one later on. Have a great day, and peace out, you nerds.